Welcome back everyone, and it's time to go balls deep. And guys, this My Hero Academia chapter just blew my mind. Seriously though, this chapter was heavy, but not everything is sadness and sorrows because balls, the prediction quirk came true. If you guys are new and don't know what I'm referring to, then make sure to watch our video explaining how Gran Torino could lose his life within the upcoming battle, along with Endeavor or Aizawa possibly losing the quirk, with the quirk destroying bullets that Shigaraki has kept with him. Also adding to a moment where Shigaraki is freed from Aizawa Sense's eyes is then be able to use his decay quirk, which will consequently force Deku to unlock Nana's float quirk due to extreme fear of losing everyone around him. I'll discuss this theory in more detail in a bit, but an important announcement is that due to popular demands, the Deku merch is finally here! And just for you guys, we have a 15% code Deku. This code will last for the next 3 days, so you guys better go and grab the shirts or hoodies, and when you do, be sure to send us a picture just like these lovely guys to get a shout out. Okay, so right off the bat, we start this chapter with a brief flashback of Shigaraki's father giving him a daily dosage of a parental beatdown while telling the boy that a hero abandons their family for the sake of society, basically expressing his hatred for hypocrisy seen with the heroes. This moment honestly reminded me of my father when I told him I wanted to become a YouTuber and took about anime. I bet all of you Asians watching this can relate.
Do you want to become doctor or garbage man, huh? You answer this question to me right now. Huh? You tell me.
I want to be doctor, sir.
Huh?
I want to be a doctor.
That's a good bastard.
Anyway, jokes aside, this flashback is a follow-up to Shigaraki's statement in the earlier chapter where he responds to Endeavor on having ideals. Shigaraki thoughts on the ideals of a hero are affected by his own father's words, where he himself had those very ideals of being a hero before he no longer believed in them. We then come back to reality where we get back to the battle scene between the heroes and Shigaraki. Aizawa, who has his eyes locked down on Shiggy to prevent him from using his quirks, tells the guys that they need to finish up quickly, indicating that our sensei is burnt out, pushing beyond his limits even with Manuel's lubrication. This could be a foreshadowing that he might end up blinking or something might happen to him, giving Shigaraki the opportunity to use his decay quirk or any of his other quirk, flipping the current situation around. We then move back to Shigaraki, who is questioned by Gran Torino on what he meant by his earlier comment regarding the hypocrisy of a hero's ideal. At this point, we finally get a deeper understanding of Shigaraki's character. Shigaraki responds saying that heroes have been pretending to protect society, where in reality and in the past throughout the many generations, heroes have actually turned a blind eye to the things they couldn't protect. They would even go far to sweep the filth of society under the rugs. While explaining all of this, Shigaraki reminisces about his own struggles to actually get some help after what happened to him and his family. Shigaraki, as a child, walking aimlessly after being exposed to the shit show that was caused by his own decay quirk, showcases the level of trauma he was left in. From that moment onwards, Shigaraki for the first time understood the reality of society and how heroes aren't always there for everyone when it matters the most. Now Shigaraki continues giving his epic speech, and honestly I had a flashback to Naruto's Pain arc when Pain gave Naruto a reality check on how things really are, but in this case we have a deranged mass murderer giving his take on the true dichotomy of heroes and villains. Moving on to the very notion that the actions of the heroes are the very cause to the problems in society itself, starting small then accumulating into a huge manifestation of destruction, with the weak-minded trashes of society being protected all the time by the so-called role players who dress up as heroes. The mental state of society becomes dependent on the expectations of safety and insurance, and if by any means and reason these expectations are not met, the weak mind of those individuals will break to the point of being deranged. They will start feeling ostracized and outcast by their own weak belief system, which was enforced by the very heroes they idolized. This is how the villains surface, creating a constant cycle of good versus evil in society. This is also the same mindset which made Stain go viral and the League of Villains to grow. Shigaraki, after giving his speech, lets lets everyone present know they will never understand this concept because they are not capable of understanding. Honestly speaking, this was so profound in many ways that it once again displayed the genius of Horikoshi's understanding of the deeper effects on mental health in society and all the anxiety that comes with it, from the feelings of suffering alone and not really being understood. The 2019 Joker movie also did a great job in depicting this. Everything in the end of the day is dependent on the social engineering of the masses, and Shigaraki's monologue goes even deeper. Shigaraki's sentiment goes back to chapter 236 where we saw Shigi's backstory, and it elevates those chapters into a new light. Shigaraki trusted heroes, idolized them, but in the end they were the very things that caused him suffering. Whether it was his father's abuse, indirectly fueled by Nana's sacrifice of her family, or the old lady who thought the heroes will eventually help him. This not only questions the heroes but makes the audience question themselves on whether they should be rooting for Deku and the gang, although that is a stretch. But if such injustice was left unturned and their own ideals led them to this situation in the world, then what purpose does the symbol of peace actually give to heroism? Isn't it just a feel-good term for the masses to sleep at night? All these smile and call for heroism and a greater than good persona for heroes, is it not all just a facade? As it is evident that it only breeds new greater hatred while it squashes evil, it also harps on our own political landscape in the real world. How ignorance and reliance on others is causing so many extremist ideologies to come into fruition. Now, after this grand speech, Endeavor brushes all of it aside, ignoring any form of plight that Shigaraki might have been alluding to. Endeavor goes in for the kill, telling Shigi that he's already dead, but Shigi's like, nah fam, and super jumps out of the way from the Fire Lord's attack to go in for his own counter. However, before he could drop Endeavor, our OG geezer Gran Torino pins him down. Gran Torino also notices that Endeavor's firepower has fallen by a lot, meaning that not only Aizawa sensei but Endeavor is also burnt out. In his case, not literally but quite the opposite. With that, Gran Torino realizes he isn't strong enough to keep Shigaraki down, being forced to jump away from him, noting that Shigaraki has only been getting faster as his battle goes on, meaning that Shigaraki is finally getting used to his new body. But before Gran Torino can fully jump away, Shigaraki grabs onto his leg, crushing it. Endeavor and Bakugo tries to rush in to help, while Aizawa can't do anything but look on in horror. Deku screams out for Gran Torino just before we see Shigaraki slam him into the ground, and oh boy, it doesn't look too good for our GG Gran Torino. As he gets bodied, he looks up and sees the big grin on Shigi's face. Gran Torino then has a flashback of him watching Nana Shimura giving up her son Kotaro, who was the father of Shigaraki. Later that night on a rooftop, Nana and Gran Torino talked, revealing that Nana didn't give up her son to work as a hero, but to actually protect him from someone. Most likely they're talking about All For One. Nana also cleared her son from any records, almost as if she never had a kid. This flashback shows the consequential actions leading to this very moment. Although Nana wanted to protect her family, this very action of separating her existence from her son's life caused the pain and heartache to form, later being passed on from her son Kotaro to Shigaraki himself. In the end, All For One still managed to achieve the very thing Nana was avoiding, which was to hurt and manipulate her children as a form of revenge. It then cuts back to Gran Torino reminiscing what Shigaraki said earlier about how heroes end up hurting their own family just to help strangers, a quote that his father Kotaro told him when he was a little boy, and we see a point of view from Shigaraki's perspective looking down at a hurt and disgruntled Gran Torino. Gran Torino's final thoughts actually leaves us on a cliffhanger as he says, Shimura, our choice was, where it cuts with him hugging a crying Nana. More than likely he was about to finish saying our choice was wrong, but just before he can finish, Shigaraki stabs him through the stomach with his hands, likely killing him as blood gushes out. I can't believe Horikoshi actually killed my man. Oh damn. Seriously guys, if Gran Torino is dead, put an F down in the comment section below. Moving on, this causes Deku to cry out and rush towards them, with Shigaraki just simply looking over saying power. Endeavor tries to tell Deku to stop, but Shigaraki simply ignores Deku and rushes past. But we can see that Shigaraki is actually rushing towards Aizawa, with Deku and Bakugo noting that he's gotten even faster than before. But before Shigaraki can get to Aizawa, Ryukyu tries to grab him. However, it's proven to only be able to stall him as he shoves his hands through her. But he thinks thinks to himself about how he's losing stamina. Deku ends up jumping from behind Shigaraki, grabbing his neck and shouting his name. He says that he'll never be able to forgive Shigaraki for what he did, but Shigaraki epically responds, "I don't forgive any of you." And I can't even explain the shivers I felt after reading this. In my opinion, Shigaraki's character is getting better and better. He then elbows Deku in the gut, but that doesn't stop Deku from holding as he converts his anger and hatred for Shigaraki into power, summoning Black Whip to hold Shigaraki down. Endeavor sees his chance and yells to Deku to keep Shigaraki right there as he prepares to hit him with everything he has left. But sadly, Shigaraki reaches his pocket and grabs a quirk destroying bullet, passing it onto the hand he punched through Ryukyu, aiming it at Aizawa, which once again follows our theory on how Aizawa or Endeavor will lose their quirk. We mentioned before that Aizawa will more likely not die due to his moral importance for our students, but if he were to lose his quirk, it would give Eri more of a push to master her quirk, because not only Mirio but Aizawa will be depending on her. However, the possibility of Endeavor jumping in the way to prevent the bullet reaching Aizawa is also likely, as it will be the final redemption moment for Endeavor, along with paving the way for the next strongest #1 hero and the face for the symbol of peace. The last thing we see in this chapter is Eri smiling while dressed up in a Christmas winter outfit. This final panel is a huge foreshadowing to our theory we covered a while back on how Eri will be the answer and countermeasure to the quirk destroying bullets. Her training is fundamental to the overarching conclusion of the story. Like we all know, My Hero Academia will eventually give us an ending where the villains are defeated, given the fact that everything was narrated by Deku himself, confirming on how he became an amazing hero. Along with the fact that in the book we see All For One referring to when he speaks to his younger brother, the book talks about a demon king who will rule the world, but his younger brother points out that in the very book that he reads, the demon king will lose in the end, so the victory of the heroes is somewhat inevitable. That doesn't mean there will not be many lives lost or tragic events that will occur for our heroes, but to get to the ending we know that Deku's All For One quirk will play a huge part. But the key person to all of this will be Eri. Her life is a literal parallel to Shigaraki. They have the same story, but where Shigaraki needed help, he didn't get it and was left to the evil manipulation of All For One. In Eri's case, she was saved by the heroes and ultimately became one herself. The back and forth paneling we see to Eri is Horikoshi's way of confirming her importance to the final battle that will take place. We covered this in more detail in our video explaining how Mirio's quirk will return. Regardless of the implication of Aizawa losing his quirk, Shigaraki will somehow get an opportunity to finally use his quirk. This comes back to the earlier point I was making of Deku finally unlocking the float quirk. If you guys go back to our previous video explaining how Deku will unlock all of his other quirks, we explained that it's heavily linked to his feelings and emotions, which has to be in sync with the same feelings of those previous All For One users. As the 5th user explained, Deku felt anger and an intense feeling to capture someone, which was the original purpose of the Black Whip. This means to unlock a quirk, Deku has to feel, experience and utilize the said quirk of the previous user in the same manner. So for Nana's float quirk, Deku would have to be in a similar scenario which she utilized for that quirk. We know that it was used mostly to save people, as she used float on All Might to make sure he is safe before she went to fight All For One and died. Nana also constantly seemed smiling, which later gave All Might the reason to do the same. But the key thing to note is that Nana told All Might that she smiles no matter how scary things are, to show others and the world everything is okay. But in reality, she is still feeling fear in her heart. All of this could lead to the requirement for Deku to access Nana's float quirk. He will feel fear but a need to protect the people around him, just like Nana felt. He will think to himself in desperation that he has to lift everyone up away from the decay, and float will be the answer. There will be no other and better person than Nana to potentially save her sensei, or at least decrease the damage output done by her own past mistake. We have spoken about this time after time on how the float quirk will be the counter to Shigaraki's decay, and the relationship of Nana being the one to save others from Shigaraki is a way of redemption, a theme pushed throughout the series of My Hero Academia. Alright guys, with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's review. Make sure to smash that like button, get yourself a Deku merch, and let me know in the comment section below if you think Gran Torino is really dead. With that, I'll catch you lot next time.